The air in Okinawa in the spring of 1945 was a toxic cocktail. It smelled of cordite, churned earth, and the sweet, cloying odor of death. For months, the island was the epicenter of a storm of steel, a place where the sky screamed and the ground bled. For the civilians hiding in caves, every sunrise was a curse. They were ghosts in their own homeland. This is the story of what happens when certainty shatters. If you find this history compelling, subscribe to our channel and tell us where you are watching from. The women hiding in the limestone crevices had been fed a steady diet of propaganda. The Americans, they were told, were not human. They were the Kichiku Beihei, the Oni, demonic beasts. Propaganda films showed them as leering monsters. Their own officers told them what to expect upon capture: torture, violation, a death so dishonorable it would shame their ancestors. The choice was simple: a clean death by your own hand, or a fate worse than any hell. Imagine you are a 22-year-old nursing student. You have not known a full meal in 3 months. The gnawing emptiness in your stomach is a constant companion. Your world has shrunk to the suffocating darkness of a cave, shared with dozens of others. The only sounds are the weeping of children and the ceaseless thunder of artillery. The soldiers of the Imperial Japanese Army who share your hiding place are not protectors. They are jailers. They take what little food you have. They speak of the honor of Gyokusai, the shattered jewel, a collective suicide for the glory of the emperor. They hand grenades to teenage girls. They instruct them to pull the pin and embrace the enemy. This, they insist, is the only path. Then, the moment arrives. A new sound cuts through the din. English. Shouted, guttural, the American devils are here. A wave of terror washes over the cave. The soldiers ready their weapons for a final, hopeless charge. An officer looks at you and the other women, his eyes cold. It is time, he says, gesturing to the grenades. But something holds you back. The simple, primal will to live. Before you can decide, a blast rips through the cave entrance. It fills the air with dust and screams. Figures are silhouetted against the blinding light. They are huge. Impossibly tall. The Oni have come. You squeeze your eyes shut, bracing for the end. You wait for the tearing pain, the violation you were promised. Instead, a hand touches your shoulder. It is surprisingly gentle. You flinch, opening your eyes. A young American Marine, his face smudged with dirt and exhaustion, is kneeling before you. He is no older than you. His eyes are not filled with demonic rage. They are filled with pity. He says something in his alien tongue, his voice soft. He holds out not a weapon, but a metal canteen. Water. He gestures for you to drink. This is the first crack in the foundation of your reality. The soldiers of your own nation offered you a grenade. The enemy devil offers you water. The journey from the cave is a blur of confusion. You are herded with other survivors, a shuffling column of ghosts. You arrive at a sprawling camp enclosed in barbed wire. A prison. This, you think, is where the real horror begins. The processing is methodical. You are separated into lines. You see medics tending to the wounded. They even tend to the Japanese soldiers who had been trying to kill them moments before. The confusion deepens. Then comes the first true shock. You are led to a canvas tent where steam billows out. Inside are makeshift stalls with crude shower heads. On a wooden crate are stacks of soap bars and rough towels. A female interpreter, an American of Japanese descent, explains. You will wash. For women who had been living in filth for months, the concept is almost too much to process. The feel of hot water on your skin is a forgotten miracle. It sluices away the dirt and the stench of the cave. As you scrub your skin raw, you feel a part of your humanity, long dormant, flicker back to life. It is a baptism, washing away not sin, but propaganda. After the showers, you are not given back your rags. You are handed a simple cotton shift, clean, white. Standing there, dripping and shivering, you are led out of the shower tent and toward another, larger one. The guards say nothing. Their faces are unreadable. You do not know if this is a prelude to mercy or a new, more elaborate form of cruelty. The tent flap opens into another world. The air inside is thick, with a smell you have not known for months. The smell of food. Not the meager, rotting sweet potatoes of the caves, but something rich, foreign. On long wooden tables sit metal trays. In each tray is a scoop of rice, a piece of canned fish, and a strange, lumpy vegetable medley. It is more food than you have seen in one place in half a year. The women hesitate. Is it poisoned? Another trick? But the hunger is a beast that claws from the inside. It overrules fear. You take a tray. The first bite is a shock. The food is bland, but it is real. It is substance. It fills the aching void in your stomach. Then you see the GIs eating their own meals nearby. They eat with a casualness that is itself a form of power. They open cans filled with meat. They spread a thick brown paste on hard biscuits. The interpreter calls it peanut butter. The women whisper, "What is it? A medicine? A sweet?" The confusion is absolute. They were told to die for an emperor who let them starve, only to be fed by an enemy that has too much food to know what to do with it. If this inversion of reality surprises you, take a moment to subscribe and support more stories like this. The numbers tell the story. A Red Cross report from 1944 noted that the standard Japanese civilian ration had fallen below 1,500 calories a day. On Okinawa, during the siege, it was far less. The average American sea ration, by contrast, contained over 3,600 calories. In 1944 alone, the United States produced over 1 billion pounds of chocolate for its armed forces. 1 billion, a number so vast it is meaningless. But here, in this camp, it becomes real. A young Marine breaks a chocolate bar and hands a piece to a child. The child, who has forgotten the taste of sweetness, cries. The mother bows her head, torn between gratitude and a profound, burning shame. The days settle into a surreal routine. The artillery has stopped. The screams are gone. In their place are new sounds. Music, tinny and strange, spills from a radio in the American quarters. It is fast and chaotic. The interpreter calls it jazz. Young soldiers, barely men, throw a small, hard ball to each other, laughing as they run between makeshift bases. It is a game. They play a game in the middle of a graveyard. This is the culture of the Oni. Frivolous, wasteful, undisciplined. And yet, they won. Their strange, playful world has crushed your world of rigid honor and sacrifice. The propaganda had shown a single, monstrous enemy. The reality is 100 different faces. There is the medic who gently cleans your wounds, his hands sure and steady. There is the guard who scowls and spits on the ground as you pass. There is the young engineer who tries to make children laugh by making faces. They are not a monolith. They are just men. This is the most dangerous discovery of all. It is easy to hate a monster. It is much harder to hate a man who gives a child a piece of his chocolate. Your loyalty, a concept that was once as clear and hard as a diamond, begins to fracture. What is loyalty to a nation that demanded you kill your own children? What is honor in a cause that ended in rubble and starvation? You look through the barbed wire at the ruins of your island. Then you look back into the camp. Inside the wire, there is food. There is medicine. There is safety. Out there, in what was once your home, there is only death. You are a prisoner. But for the first time in months, you are not afraid. Captivity, you realize, has become more dignified than the freedom you were supposed to die for. The days that followed were a cascade of cognitive dissonance. In the evenings, the Americans would stretch a canvas sheet between two poles. A beam of light would flicker to life, painting ghosts on the fabric. They called them movies, films from a place called Hollywood. On the screen, men and women with perfect teeth lived in houses bigger than village halls. They drove shiny cars and argued about things like love and money, problems so luxurious they were incomprehensible. The Okinawan women watched in stunned silence. They sat in the dirt, wearing donated dresses, watching a fantasy world projected over the ruins of their real one. This was the culture that had defeated them. A culture of such impossible abundance, it could afford to waste light on imaginary stories. How do you fight an enemy who is not only stronger, but seems to live in a different dimension of reality? If you are finding this story of cultural collision as fascinating as we do, please subscribe to our channel to help us tell more hidden histories. This was the true psychological battlefront. The propaganda had been a simple story of good versus evil, of pure spirit against demonic brutes. The reality was infinitely more complex. One afternoon, the Americans held a lecture. An interpreter stood before them, not with a weapon, but with a chart. He explained that in the year 1944, American factories produced over 96,000 airplanes. He explained that their shipyards built more ships in 1 month than the Japanese Empire had in its entire navy. The numbers were meaningless, astronomical. Then he held up a single tube of lipstick. He explained that the company that made it, a company called Revlon, had converted part of its production to make first aid kits and dye markers for the Navy. The women stared at the lipstick, an object of vanity and a tool of war made by the same hands. The line between civilian life and total war, so clear in Japan, was blurry here. Everything in America, it seemed, was part of the same colossal, unstoppable machine. This knowledge did not bring comfort. It brought despair. The honor of a noble death, the Gyokusai, had been a lie. They were not a shattered jewel. They were an insect crushed by a boot. For some, this was too much to bear. An older woman, who had lost her sons in the fighting, was found one morning hanging from the rafters of a latrine. She had used her own obi sash. She had chosen the old way. Honor, even in a world where it meant nothing, was all she had left. Her death sent a ripple of fear through the camp. The choice was no longer between dying for the emperor or capture by the Oni. The choice was now between a past that was a lie and a future that was unimaginable. A captured Japanese diary from the period reads, "The enemy is kind. I cannot understand it. Today they gave us food and medicine. We were told they were beasts. Are we the beasts?" This question hung in the air, unspoken. You would see it in the eyes of the young women as they tentatively combed their hair with American combs. You would see it in the faces of the men as they accepted cigarettes from the guards. They were being kept alive by the very people they had been ordered to kill at all costs. Their own leaders had given them grenades. The Americans gave them canned peaches. The shame was a physical weight, heavier than hunger. Then, one day in mid-August, a strange stillness fell over the camp. The American guards were quiet, gathered in small groups around their radios. Their usual casualness was gone, replaced by a tense, somber energy. The prisoners watched, whispering. Had the tide of the war turned? Was the divine wind, the kamikaze, finally blowing in their favor? Later that afternoon, all prisoners were ordered to assemble in the main square. The camp commander, an American major, stood on a wooden crate. Next to him stood a captured Japanese officer, his face a pale, rigid mask. The American major spoke, and the interpreter's voice echoed across the silent crowd. He spoke of 2 new bombs, of cities that had disappeared in a flash of light, of an imperial broadcast, of surrender. He then nodded to the Japanese officer. It was his duty to read the emperor's proclamation to his countrymen. The officer, a man who had told his own soldiers that surrender was unthinkable, took the paper. His hands trembled. He opened his mouth to speak, to read the words that would officially end his entire world, but no sound came out. The Japanese officer's lips parted. His throat worked, but the words of surrender, the emperor's own words, would not come. The paper in his hands shook violently. In that one moment of frozen silence, an entire world of honor, duty, and divine purpose collapsed into dust. He was a symbol of a nation that had lost its voice. The prisoners watched, their faces blank. There was no celebration, no relief, only a profound, hollow stillness. The war had ended not with a final glorious charge, but with a stammered apology they could not even hear. The gates of the camp opened a few days later. It was not a liberation, it was an eviction. The women stepped out, clutching their few possessions, wearing their American dresses. They left behind the barbed wire, the regular meals, the strange safety of captivity. They walked back into the ruins of their own world. The landscape was a nightmare of twisted metal and shattered concrete. The sweet smell of death still hung in the air. Their homes were gone. Their families were gone. The nation they were told was invincible had been broken. The freedom they now possessed was the freedom to starve in the rubble. Many of them never spoke of what happened in the camps. How could they? How could they explain it to the husbands and brothers who returned from the war, filled with hatred for the enemy? How could they describe the shame of being fed by their captors? How could they explain the confusion of being treated with a mercy they had been taught was impossible? The story was too complex, too contradictory. The kindness they received was a deeper wound than any physical cruelty would have been. It was a secret they carried in silence for the rest of their lives. They had been prepared for devils. They had been handed grenades and told to die an honorable death in the face of monsters. They were ready for the worst humanity had to offer. But they were not prepared for what they found. They were not prepared for water, for medicine, for hot showers and clean clothes. They were not prepared for a soldier to give a piece of his chocolate to a crying child. The ultimate weapon of the Americans was not their bombs or their tanks. It was the shocking, disorienting, and absolute power of their mercy. They had come to Okinawa to conquer an island. They ended up conquering a reality. What part of this history shocked you the most? The demand for suicide or the gift of lipstick? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that reveal the hidden truths of the past.